Charles Marshall has only to walk a few steps from his comfortable home in Vermontville to his shop, where he carefully crafts a musical instrument straight out of the Bible. What he makes is a stringed instrument called the Psaltery, an instrument that goes back to the days of the Old Testament. The soft tones of it have not only survived the ages, but speak the musical language fluently of every country it filtered into.
I built my first Psaltery. Actually, it's right here. Basically, the Psalteries, I have a long history. They're mentioned in the Bible about 7 times from what I've been told, the word Psaltery. Back then, they had a square box, basically, and they used gut strings, and they didn't have very many strings on it. So they plucked them in the early 1900s. The way the story goes, a school teacher in Pennsylvania was attempting to teach her kids how to play violin. And they weren't having a lot of success, apparently, and she had a friend or had a Psaltery, one like similar to this, and decided instead of plucking it, which is fine, but she wanted to see if you could use a violin bow with it. So then they went to using a violin-style bow.
That worked so well that today the bow is the standard way to play a Psaltery. Marshall built his first instrument, then sat down and played it, drawing much satisfaction from his craft and from making music. Although this ancient instrument is small, it must stand a great amount of stress.
This particular model basically has got anywhere from 600 to 700 pounds of pull, trying to pull this instrument apart. And so with the wire strings and the development of a good bow, they're really making some good music with it.
Although uncommon here, in Japan, orchestras have as many as 20 Psalteries in it. Sometimes the music is electronically amplified. The Appalachian Mountains in the south turn out a fertile field of Psaltery players, but the Adirondack Mountains are beginning to meet the challenge. Players like Caperton Tissot of Saranac Lake saw and heard her first Psaltery and said, "This is something I can do." So she purchased one and is playing it today, sometimes accompanied by her husband Will on the piano.
The instrument was beautiful, first of all, and that drew my attention. And then I asked him what it sounded like, and he started playing some, and I thought that the sound of it was just lovely. And then he explained that it's relatively easy for somebody who doesn't have a lot of musical talent to play this kind of an instrument.
Caperton Tissot said that if you can hum a tune, you are on your way to playing the instrument that caught her eye and ear.
I tend to play from the sheet music, figure out a song, and then I memorize it. Except for my failing memory, it works pretty well most of the time. There's always a note or two off, but most of the time it works pretty well, and I must have 50 or more songs memorized now.
Marshall said that by using 2 bows, you come up with a different sound, one that blends.
Some people don't understand the fact that when you hit that string, a particular string, it resonates until even after you hit the next string. So you can have 2 of them going at once, and they overlap, and it makes a very different kind of a sound.
A sound somewhere between a harp and a violin. It's like having the white piano keys on one side of the board and black on the other. Of course, the quality of wood used in the instrument plays a major role.
The wood that I've got now was harvested about 50 years ago. My father bought a number of years ago, and some of the wood is reclaimed wood from various projects. And for instance, this top of this, the American chestnut, came from an old barn.
Charlie Marshall has been making the Psaltery for about 4 years now, and one thing he's learned in that time is he hasn't gotten tired of it. That means he'll continue to spend time in his shop. Marshall has enough wood for about 100 more instruments. He painstakingly turns out about 10 a year. For Mountain Lake Journal, I'm Jack LaDuke in Vermontville.
Mountain Lake Journal